Let's discuss. Hey everyone, it's Rachel back again with another video, and today I'm very excited to check out the new EP from HEAVENSGATE called And All I Loved Alone. I only covered Ginsick on the channel, but I've heard all three of the singles. That would include Chemical Heaven, which is the opener for this EP, and Shemoveslikethunder. The singles are well split throughout the EP, meaning like every other track is a single, every other track is a new one. So there are 3 singles, 3 new songs. This band, if you're not familiar, has Josh Ang and Dave Wilder from their ex-Dealer members. Josh Ang is in Pincer Plus, which I've covered on the channel and talked a lot about. Just really talented musicians. The group is more than just them, but I'm very excited for this EP. I'm expecting it to stay in my top 5 this year, if the singles are an indication to what the rest of the EP will be like. My favorite is without a doubt Ginsick. That song has been on repeat for me since I made the video, so very excited about this. I will link all of their social media promotional links in the description of this video. Shout out to Grayscale Records and to the band for getting this over to me in time to make a video. Other than that, I'm going to stop talking and we are going to get straight into it. So opening track, Chemical Heaven, huge song. I love this one. It's probably my second favorite after Ginsick. Then we will get into Comfort in the Slow Death. So thunderous. The drop song is just synth there. I love the way that lets out too. The slow down, the warp slow down, comfort in the slow death. I expected that to drop. Like that. That's nice. Yeah, that fits right in. Probably nestled in between Ginsick and Chemical Heaven, like in terms of favorites for me. This one I do have on the channel, as I mentioned. This is my favorite of the singles. That's my favorite Heaven's Gate song so far. This I've listened to a lot of times. It'll be a hard one to top. But I've heard good things about Loversdance. No spoilers or anything, but I am keen to hear that one. This one.
Somebody else. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing a soul. I'm from a home with stars in your eyes. Oh, la, la, la. Oh, why won't you breathe me?
Wow. Ooh, it has a lot of like the cleaner parts of Ginsick and like the or I guess just overall from some of the songs, but like that strum there specifically.
somebody
wait.
else. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing it slow. I'm from a home. You're one of a kind. Oh la la la. With hooks in my heart, I'm falling apart. Where have you been?
Not what I was expecting. That is my shit. Wow. My favorite parts of this band have been like the heavier parts, the drops and Ginsick, mixed with like the softer sound that they really tapped into with that track. I'll talk more in the outro. Shemoveslikethunder, another single. I love this track still. They don't have a bad song in their discography, which is, this is their discography. I haven't heard the last one, but that, the aggression. I'm really glad they say Loversdance first. Bottom version of those things. So such a good track. I love that riff. The whole time. And we're already at the closer. Symbiotic Suicide. Those... Hold on. Oh, wait. But I will reference this exact part in the outro. It's back! That transition! Heaven's Gate and All I Loved Alone. Let's discuss. A phenomenal EP. This will sit at the top of the list for me, I think, defending its spot regardless. Right now I don't have much on the radar in terms of EPs. There are a couple of things, a couple of whispers about upcoming things, but in terms of solid announced stuff or stuff that's already come out, this is going to be it by a mile, and it will defend that spot very, very aggressively, I think, because the things that I loved the most, so I mentioned in the beginning that Ginsick is my favorite of the singles, and then you have Loversdance, which I suppose I'll talk about Comfort in the Slow Death first, because that is earlier on in the track listing. That track really, it has its own identity more so than I think Loversdance taps into certain aspects of Ginsick that I really enjoyed, but Comfort in the Slow Death has that, like, you know, the chugs, the riffs as well, the breakdown in that song, and the call out of the song name, like even that part, there's just like an edge to the aggression that's delivered in the vocals especially, I think, but the instrumentals obviously match up to that very well. The use of synth in that track is something that I mentioned during it. That lead up, having the synth there was real. It was a real key for me. I think it played a bigger part that sometimes I talked about this in a few videos, not in every video or anything, but there's sometimes a detail that can seem minor on, like, in the grand scheme of things, really plays a big part, and that felt to me like one of those moments. It was something that felt a bit different from what they've got, like what the ground that they've laid out so far, I suppose I should say, but that track really had everything they had laid out as like the blueprint with the singles, that followed suit, but at the same time it doesn't sound like just the same thing, if that makes sense. So they're kind of like widening it, but drilling, that was a good stutter, but drilling down further into some of the sounds that they've presented already, which with a new band is very exciting. They, like, the 3 singles that they have, that's their discography so far, so we're kind of like getting a closer look at what the band's sound will be. So Comfort in the Slow Death was I think a good mixture of like that aggressive side of them, and sort of just gonna be another on repeat track for me, because Ginsick being my favorite, some of my favorite parts of that were like the drops, like that first drop where you get without having to admit to myself that I'm a piece of shit. row, and like that big drop there, that is one of my favorite parts of everything that they've done so far. I'm not sure what it really drives on, like that emotion, because the lyrics that they've got in the singles, I need to read through the non-singles on here, but what they've got with the singles, very emotional, very personal, very honest, stuff like that. I feel having those sorts of drops that aren't just the same as a lot of what you hear, I guess, I think that really drives on like what the message is behind the song, if that makes sense. So moving on, Loversdance taps so far into the more like atmospheric or kind of like shoegazy parts that sort of peek through in Ginsick. It's overall a pretty aggressive track, but it slows down, and like the "oh my darling," like those parts of it, when you hear that one strum that I mentioned that I heard, and I was just immediately like, oh wow, this is like the softest parts of Ginsick taken and then given its own identity by being a whole song. The fully clean vocals, and I can't tell if that's one or if there are additional vocals in there, if that's just the main vocalist, or if they're, because it sounded like, if you really listen, I went back and listened to that track a second time because I absolutely had to, but if you really listen, it sounds like there's like a little bit more going on with the singing, but I'm really unsure. But that track surprised me also because I feel like typically, we've been sort of moving away from like, oh, softest song on a release has to be the last track. I think that bands are like doing more of where they want to place them. So it's like a middle of the release kind of breath of this, because they have a very relentless overall sound. A lot, like if you go back like further down, Symbiotic Suicide, that has the drop at the end that I was talking about, that is one of my favorite parts of Ginsick. So seeing Ginsick, having Ginsick as my favorite track, and then hearing some of like my favorite qualities from that song expanded on in the other songs in different ways, like the drop at the end of that song, which I'll speak more about it shortly, than just like, oh, I love the drop at the end, bye. But I mean, in relation to my favorite track, like seeing that sort of expanded on is a huge thing for me. I think that makes it probably like better than anticipated with this release, because obviously when you have a favorite of something, you're hoping to hear it, I mean, not just copied and pasted throughout the whole release. It expands on it in different ways, for sure. So all that into consideration, Symbiotic Suicide has, like, I think that's a great closer for this EP over Loversdance. For me, I really like an opener and closer that kind of, I guess it really depends, because there's stuff like Grayscale Season on their record, Do You Like Violence? They have Now Let's Make Those Teeth Leave Your Pretty Mouth, and that runs a lot on the softer side, and I think that's a great close. I suppose it really does depend on the release, but lately I've been into stuff that kind of encapsulates the entire release well, like stuff that sort of, if it has softer moments and heavier moments at the same time, a track that kind of nods a little bit to both sides. And Loversdance is a surprising track for me. Like you can hear, like, after hearing Loversdance, if you go back and listen to Ginsick, the qualities that they have in common are very obvious, but it's not a song that you would listen to Ginsick and then go, oh, I think this band is going to do something like Loversdance. But I'm so glad that they did, because it also gives them the space to show a different side of their vocalist, a different side of how they can do their instrumentals, and then they're able to pick the pace back up and continue on. And while Loversdance really shows like we can do more than just like the ass beater tracks that have like some moments that come through as like a sort of breath of fresh air with like a more atmosphere or a shoegazy type style or whatever, they're able to expand on that as well. So while I love that, I don't think it's a good like closer or opener or anything like that. I think it's placed very well like in the middle of the release, while the actual closing track, I think it does justice to the rest of the release. It has that main riff that's in there that I had mentioned during the reaction portion of it. That is the part that sticks out to me the most. But at the same time as you have like the more technical stuff or some riffs like that, you get the chuggy stuff. You get the space for the vocalist to kind of close out the chapter of their first release. All of that. So I'm really happy with this. I would go over the non-singles as well, but I feel like I'm already running it up on time for the outro. But I'm incredibly happy with this. I love the most aggressive of moments. I love the lightest of moments, and I feel like that's a really important quality for me, because sometimes a band will like do both but do one kind of half-assed, or like it will be an obvious dip in quality, and this doesn't feel that way at all. So I'm very happy. Loversdance is going to be one of those tracks that I put on repeat, but I don't think I could pick out a favorite yet, because there's a lot to kind of unpack, and also the lyrical honesty and the topics here will be big for me. I'm going to dig into the lyrics more, and I think that will play into what ends up being like my favorite track as well, because with Ginsick, the more I like read the lyrics, the more I like felt those drops that I was talking about, the more it just went up, and it was a song I'm constantly listening to. So I do feel like that's what's bound to happen with the rest of the EP that I was not familiar with before right now as well. But nothing that I won't revisit, I can tell you that much. Nothing that felt like a weaker track to me either for the non-singles. Even what I mentioned, like Shemoveslikethunder being what I would rank as number 3 if I were ranking the singles, that's still a track that I listen to a lot. And now that the EP will be out this Friday, it'll be on my playlist heavily as well. It's not a skippable track to me. So those are my thoughts after first listen. I'm incredibly happy with this for a first release for them especially, and even aside from that, I feel like I would be. So I don't have anything I would want to be different about this EP. It's going to go directly on repeat for me. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you're able to pick a favorite track, let me know what that was. I will link all of HEAVENSGATE's social media, promotional links, all of that stuff in the description of this video. You can also find my link tree there. That will have the Patreon link, which I've been working on the Patreon content. We've got streams coming up this weekend, or a stream, the patron-only stream. I've got some more content I'm working on for it, just that sort of stuff. So if you're interested in checking out the tiers, that will be there, as well as the Discord server invite link. That is where the community is based for my YouTube channel. We've got music-related conversation unrelated to music, just a bunch of music lovers in a community. So if you're interested in checking that out, that will also be there, as well as any link that you may need for my channel, my Instagram profile, my Last FM, all that stuff. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.